Hello everyone, welcome to the Swiss Companies Perspective, a new monthly podcast brought to you by the Swiss Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Singapore. My name is Loretta Dalpozzo, I'm a Swiss journalist, and I'm very excited today to be here with the chairman of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Singapore, Georg von Wattenwyl. Am I pronouncing it right?
Correct, Georg von Wattenwyl, yes.
Welcome, how are you, Georg?
I'm very well, thank you very much, and thank you for doing that with me. I think it's a great honor to be here and to have this interview.
This is a new adventure. This is a new appointment for the business community in Singapore. Tell me, first of all, why to give a new voice or a new platform to Swiss companies in Singapore?
I think this is one of things we can do for all these great companies here in Singapore. So the Swiss business community is pretty strong, and we have great companies, and we want to talk about it. And we've just found that the Swiss Chamber is a pretty good platform to do that.
I would like to introduce you properly. You are here as a chairman of the Swiss Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. Long experience in finance and banking, more than 20 years experience, first in Switzerland, now in Singapore as a CEO of Fontobel. Anything else that I should add about your long career?
No, it's exactly that. So I have the pleasure to work for a very nice company, a long time in Switzerland, and so then afterwards they asked me to come to Singapore and to run the wealth management activities of Asia, and this is a very exciting job. And now as well, and here representing the Swiss Chamber as the chairman.
And you are very busy. I mean, the Swiss Chamber is very engaged, is very busy, a lot of events, a lot of new members. Is an exciting time for the Swiss Chamber of Commerce?
It is, definitely, because as you say, so we have a very good momentum. So things are doing well. We have kind of a quite a good activity of many members. We have subcommittees which are very well established and active. And also post-pandemic, we can see that really things are ramping up, and that's a very exciting time for the chamber, yeah, definitely.
We all want to forget about the pandemic, but let's talk briefly about it. Do you feel there is a need from your member to meet more, to share about that project? Do you need to come together, basically?
Absolutely. I think everybody is enjoying to come together again. And as we know, the Swiss people are really connective people, and they're very, very happy to come back and to network and to come together and to just exchange. I think this is something we definitely can see. But also what I can mention is also during the pandemic, it was very important that we as a chamber, we just provided kind of a platform to exchange, a platform to share experiences, a platform to become kind of a voice as well for our industry and for our companies. And so therefore, as well, during the pandemic, we had quite a good exchange with our members.
And how would you say the Swiss companies navigate through the pandemic? How are they doing now?
I think there's no general answer to that, right? Since we have also different sectors, some which struggle a bit more, like hospitality and all these things, I think for obvious reasons. And on the other hand, we had sectors which did pretty well or very well. So, for example, from the fintech space or also on the finance. So I think there was for them, it was not so tough times, just from a business point of view. However, for all of them, it was very essential as well that the Swiss Chamber took a bit of a responsibility, and as well vis-a-vis government agencies or other associations, so we could be a voice for them and just to share as well about all these concerns and maybe as well about all the issues they are facing.
So once a month, we will talk to one company who is member of the chamber, so big or small, well-known or less known, and we're really talking about, well, a global issue, business trend, but also very specific project that maybe they are involved in.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great format which we can bring companies, and we can introduce them. We can talk about them.
Even the Straits Times a few months ago talked about the desire of the chamber to have even a bigger role here in Singapore. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I think that's for us. This is definitely a great compliment, right? So that we get this kind of exposure that even. Straits Times talks about us and our ambitions and so on. So I think this is a great accomplishment. But on the other hand, it's also a responsibility and kind of a mandate we are getting from our members, from our companies, which also want to use us as a platform a bit to get more exposure to the community, to get more exposure to the society. And so that is something where we want to even invest more. We want to come a bit abroad, just the entire community which we are already in, where we have our network already established since many, many years. So we want to collaborate with other chambers in other countries in the regions. We want to be involved with more government agencies and so on, and by doing that as well to get a better exposure in the Singapore society, business society.
Among Swiss companies, there are very big names, so internationally known, right? But somehow you still need all these Swiss company to have a bigger voice, to have a bigger presence.
No, it's interesting. When we talk about big companies, they are definitely known for their products or for their brands and all these things. So that's absolutely clear. But do we really know what they are doing? What kind of great employers they are for their people? What kind of initiatives they run for the society? What kind of responsibility they take? I'm not so sure. And that is something we can talk about. And that is something we can just have a look at it from a neutral point of view.
And can you give us a number about Swiss companies in Singapore? How many people they employ?
Yeah, I think that's something often is a bit underestimated. So we have around 400 companies, Swiss companies here in Singapore, which are home for about 25,000 employees. So it's a very strong community. Definitely we have this great big companies like UBS, like Credit Suisse and so on, which have a lot of employees. But there are more and more as well coming, other companies coming to the place and being a great hub for these businesses. So there is kind of a change going on.
Singapore is known as the Switzerland of Asia. So there is also a strong relationship between Switzerland and Singapore. But is it really Singapore, Switzerland of Asia, would you say?
I think so. There are many similarities, and that's why maybe as well we feel so good living in Singapore. I think there are many values which we are sharing, and so therefore, yeah, I think there's a piece of truth in that. Yeah, definitely.
And I think it was actually 1984, right? Mm-hmm. It was Minister Goh Chok Tong that became Prime Minister and start making comparison with Switzerland. And they said he wanted for Singapore to achieve the same standard of living as Switzerland by 1999. So this is a little bit how the whole thing came about, right? So a lot of similarities, a lot of differences as well. So in a way, we are friends and competitors.
Absolutely. But as we all know, to be friendly competitors in a way is also kind of inspiring, and it's helping each other. And I think that's a perfect example, definitely. Yeah.
Is it easy for Swiss companies in Singapore to actually be successful?
I think it depends. That depends again. So I think Singapore is a great hub in Asia for Swiss companies to bring the business to Southeast Asia and also to even greater places in the region. I think that is already relatively clear. We have standards, we have also security, we have kind of laws and values which certainly are pretty similar to the ones in Switzerland, and that's why companies feel good when they come. So that's certainly one thing. A second thing is it is probably not so difficult to set up a company in Singapore. So just from a administrative point of view and so on. So many can do that. But afterwards, also there's a great competition, and you have to have your business model. You have to have your USPs as well against other companies that you can be successful. And that is sometimes a long way. And I wouldn't say it is very easy to be successful in Singapore.
When I arrived in 2006, of course, everybody was talking about competition with Switzerland as a financial center, right? So, I mean, the big banks were already here, but it was a big drive for people in the financial sector. Things have changed over the years. Where would you say are the biggest opportunities now?
So I think Swiss banks, they are still very strong here in the region when it comes to wealth management, when it comes to banking services. So I think that is something which remains and still provides a lot of opportunities. Maybe as well because Swiss banks were relatively early times already here. And they brought this kind of private banking, wealth management culture to the region, and they still benefit from it. I think that's certainly the case. But when we just look a bit at the landscape when it comes to industries, so there is a bit of change, right? So Singapore is not only the wealth hub anymore, but it's also more and more becoming a hub for technology, for innovation, fintech, for example, as well. So it's a big hub for fintech as well. So therefore, this landscape changed a bit, and also therefore the types of companies coming to Singapore from Switzerland also changed.
Very often when you are abroad, maybe not so much in Singapore, but in the rest of Asia, and you talk about Switzerland and Swiss companies, people always think about chocolate and mountains and banking, right? So sometimes there is a little bit of frustration maybe because it's all about this cliche. Switzerland is so much more than that, even if, of course, all these elements are part of our identity and our success. Do you also come across this sort of cliche? Do you have to explain often what is Switzerland, what are Swiss companies?
Yeah, but I wouldn't name it as a frustration. For me as well, I'm pretty proud of that, because these are things the Singaporeans and the Asian like, right? So beautiful things like watches, chocolate, mountains, and if you just listen to Singaporeans, what is one of the favorite holiday destinations, then often they will tell you it's Switzerland. So therefore, I think it is something which can be an advantage for us. But when it comes to companies, and also companies which we represent as a Swiss chamber, then we can definitely see a change towards companies which are much more involved into technology, into retail, into innovation, and so on. So there is certainly kind of a shift which we observe. Also, smaller companies usually which come here.
Small, medium company, is Singapore a good place for this sort of companies?
I think it is because when it is a hub of, as I said, innovation. Certainly, it's a hub of talent as well. I think for companies here to build their business, to have a source of talents all over the world, they are coming. So that is something which definitely is an advantage. And so therefore, there are also so many smaller, medium companies here.
What is innovation in Switzerland?
Yeah, I think one example which I would mention here is, for example, blockchain, right? And so that is something where Switzerland really is very advanced, and Singapore as well. And there we can already see some very interesting collaboration when it comes to companies which are active in Europe, Switzerland, but as well here. So they have good ties, and this is something which works already. And also we can see that, for example, when it comes to governments, which also collaborate, which also talk about frameworks, build about frameworks when it comes to these new industries. And so therefore, I think Switzerland definitely has a kind of a good recognition as well on innovation. But also, for example, food technology is something which I would like to mention. So there are small companies developing pretty well here in Singapore, Swiss companies. There is also kind of a hub when it comes to ETH, so the university, which runs programs and establish kind of collaborations here when it comes to food technology, and that definitely attracts companies from the region, but as well from elsewhere. And so therefore, I think as Switzerland, we definitely provide kind of innovation as well. And we want to be recognized for that.
Do we see more young tech people, experts, specialists coming here also from Switzerland? Not only bankers?
Absolutely. So I think that's also what Singapore tries to attract a bit, right? So to be very strong when it comes to techs, to tech company, when it comes to innovation means, on the other hand, as well, that you want to have those kind of people, right? Which are well educated, looking for challenges and places where they can establish, right?
We were talking before about working together. So the FinTech Festival, I think it started in Singapore. Now you have one also in Zurich. How the two countries are working together on this, and is the chamber involved in any way?
Mm-hmm. So FinTech Festival here in Singapore was a great success post-pandemic as well for the Swiss Chamber, because it was the first time we as well had a booth there, and it was something which was quite well used by our companies, Swiss FinTech companies, which there could present their capabilities and their businesses, and so they were very happy with this appearance. And I think it's anyway very impressive when you just see this kind of FinTech festival here in Singapore, which is just huge, right? If you compare to other. When it comes to Switzerland, so therefore certainly we need to mention this 0.0 initiative, which was a collaboration between Switzerland, FinTech scene, and Singapore. And so they came along with on very high level and very senior level from politicians. So they came along with a framework for regulatory topics and as well a bit kind of a future outlook for these industries and how they want to collaborate going forward. And I think that is something which definitely is a very good example, and both countries are pretty proud of.
So what are the concerns now of Swiss companies in Singapore?
One of the concerns is talent recruiting, right? So that is something you can see from different angles, be it on just a more, I would say, higher educated positions and so on, which is very difficult to get these people. There is a hot competition also going on, and companies are really fighting for those kind of talents, and it is something which is difficult for companies. But also on the other end, for example, hospitality, which needs a lot of people as well to make all the facilities work and so on. So they are lacking a bit of people, since immigration is not so easy anymore. And so therefore I would say from different angle, but to get the people to make your business work. So that is certainly something which comes along. Another thing is definitely about housing prices, rentals, which is thanks to because of the success of Singapore as well, in the actual global environment where Singapore post-pandemic certainly came out much stronger. So they are benefiting a lot. And so what we see is that everybody wants to come to Singapore, everybody wants to be here, and that has a big impact on pricing when it comes to housing, for example. So I would say these are certainly things when you talk to companies and also to people, then this comes along.
Yeah, I think Singapore is one of the most expensive cities in the world,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
More than Zurich.
Even more than Zurich.
So how to try to solve this problem? To address
I think
it?
as a chamber, you cannot solve the problem in a way, but what you can do is you can share experiences. You can provide a platform where, for example, we have a subcommittee which is called People and Skills Development. So where people from different companies and different sectors come together and discuss about what are good measures to take, or what is something which we as a chamber can address vis-a-vis government agencies and so on. So that is one thing where we can help, where we can be a platform and we can have kind of an agenda and afterwards as well be a voice. So I think that's a role a chamber can play.
So much to say, so little time. Maybe before ending our first conversation, I would like to ask you, as we said, a lot of events, a lot of subject to talk about. What are the main subject, the main topics that the Swiss Chamber talk about?
So you have already 8 subcommittees which are running, and these are usual topics like it is finance, definitely. It is climate tech as well, which is a topic which is very important here in Singapore, and companies contribute to it. It is about science and technology. So the foods initiative, which we just discussed, is hosted there. Then it's about digital transformation, which was a subcommittee which was very, very important during pandemic. So where companies shared as well about their efforts when it comes to digitalization. It is people and skills. It is hospitality, which is also where Switzerland has pretty strong community when it comes to hospitality here in Singapore. And so these are a bit the subcommittees we have, and the discussion is very strongly focused on those topics. Yeah.
We are going to hear much more from the companies themselves once a month on this podcast, the Swiss Company Perspective. Thank you very much for this introduction. And this is all for this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Loretta.
Thank you.